share a few slides with you from a different kind of presentation. Um, and Now that I found a button that just went away, there it is. Um, I want to talk about what happens when the stakes are high in on a political level, when you're actually trying to create something new, something different. Um, so I want to talk about an act that we all know really well. And this was the signing of the Declaration of Independence a few hundred years ago. Now, first of all, it didn't look like that. That's called a drawing. That's the best that they could come up with at the time. Um, and But the notion of a group of people sitting in a room and changing the way that they are um, looked upon, changing the way they look at each other. Now, if you came through the elementary school system and you're over, let's say, 25 years old, you probably know elements of the Declaration of Independence by heart. Um, no, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, and you know the rest of it. And I don't mean to minimize that because those were really, really important words. And important to this day in their absence um, in our political dialogue. But what I want to show you is something else that you on that document that you did not memorize. And that's the last line, or maybe you did. They all signed, um, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Now, they understood that the document that they were signing was their death warrant, that they had two choices. One choice was to win, and the other choice was to die. So they recognized that by signing their name, by putting their name on the document, that they were putting themselves on a course that they could not stop, that um, kings don't take lightly to being opposed, especially opposed in such a dramatic way of saying, we're going to change our form of government. we 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 don't need kings anymore. And King George, as most kings at the time would do, said, "Oh, yes, you do." And the king had a lot of powers at that time. One of the powers of the king was that he could kill you. Um, you kind of expect that. Um, but another power of the king was that and kill you is it's not um, it would be done in a very amazingly public and messy way. Um, I don't know if you know what drawn and quartered means, but that means that they draw a line down your body, cut you in half, and then cut you in quarters. Um, they take your head and play soccer with it. They boil it in oil and then put your head on a pike, on a stick, in front of the Watergate, at the Watergate at the Tower of London. And then they take your wife and your children, put them on a boat, and take them to the Watergate so they could say goodbye to your boiled head. And the last thing they did was take your name. So your children would not be allowed to call themselves Jefferson or Washington or Franklin or Adams. Those names would be banned. So they would erase you from history. Now, when they wrote this, we mutually pledged to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Oh, I forgot the fortunes part. They would take everything that you owned, and it would become the property of the king. Um, they meant it, and they meant it at a level that was, in our days and time, pretty brutal. Um, but but is uh, we need to understand that we have a similar duty. We have to be similarly impressed. We have to impress, be impressed, and we have to impress each other. And we have to see it through to our um, conclusion, because it's not just about who sits in an overly large building in Washington, D.C. That's probably the least important part of what we're doing. We are creating a new civilization, a new way of being on our planet. I want to bring up um, another instance of leadership in our world. And what I wanted to is remind us of another of our, what in my estimation, of our great um, presidents. Um, and this is during the internal cataclysm that we refer to as the Civil War, or if you're from the South, the war between the states. Um, and this is during one of the difficult times in the war. And I, so this though is not a history lesson. I want you to hear these words in terms of the context of our struggles today, a global struggle for what does humanity do at this turn of events in our lives. Every society, every nation, every group of people faces this. And so what Lincoln said, the dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. As our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew. We must disenthrall ourselves. And that is such a great word. We're in a thrall, we're under a spell, and we are the only ones that can break the spell. That spell is being cast by all of the internet stuff that we get fed every day. But we're the ones that watch it, and we're the ones that can turn our heads away from it. Lincoln went on to say, fellow citizens, we cannot escape history. We will be remembered in spite of ourselves. We, even we here, hold the power, and bear the responsibility. We shall nobly save or meanly lose the last best hope of earth. Now, Abe was talking in the 1860s, but he's also talking in 2025. We don't have the luxury of um, playing around with the shiny ribbons and the tinsel that gets thrown in front of us, thinking that we're actually doing something. We need to have a different kind of conversation with ourselves first. We have to have a different kind of a conversation with each other. And we have to have a different kind of a conversation with those who are not part of um, our country, not part of our government. We have to recognize that we are one species on this planet, and it's time for us to start acting like that. Even more than that, and you've heard me say, and we will be saying together in about 5 or 10 minutes, that we have to take into consideration all other beings. This is one planet, and it's time for us to start acting like one planet. So our challenge is, because our case is new, we are seeing the world in a completely different way. And because we're seeing it in a completely different way, we can't turn to the politics of the past on, which way am I pointing? The right. We can't point to the politics of the left. We have to do something brand new. Um, I've been very impressed by Václav Havel and the people of Občanský Forum in the former Czechoslovakia who pulled off the Velvet Revolution and did that, defeated the second largest superpower on Earth, and did it without firing one shot. Now, that to me is really impressive. We should be studying that in college, but we don't. We study Hobbes, and we study Locke, and we study Adams, and then if we don't like that, we study Marx. And it's time for us to stop studying dead folks, and it's time for us to get a perspective on what we need to do. And that perspective comes from something that I call the 3 Ds. And the 3 Ds are really simple: direction, discipline, and devotion. Now, we'll be spending more time with this in our future. We'll spend a lot of time talking about this on the 14th of June. But if you don't know what your direction is, then how can you ever achieve anything? If you wait for example, Donald Trump to do something and then you're going to just do the opposite, you have no direction. Your direction should come from your vision. And if your vision is, I just want to turn over everything that he did, then you have no direction. We have a direction. I wear it right here every day. It's called Creating a World That Works for All. Now, that's a pretty heavy duty vision. And if that doesn't inspire you, I need to check your pulse. But I if you think there's something else that's more inspiring than that, than creating a world that works for all living beings, please let me know and I'll give mine up and I'll join you. Second thing is discipline. And discipline is not uh, I'm going to do whatever I feel like doing, and maybe some of that will work. Um, There's a guy who um, during demonstrations in the Pacific Northwest, he would agitate to the point that the police would arrest him. And when he went to get arrested, he would pull down his pants. I'm not kidding. Pull down his pants, defecate into his own hand, smear himself with his own feces, and run away, knowing that the cops would not want to grab a person who is dipped in their own feces. Now, this is something he felt like doing, but it had nothing to do with the issue. It had nothing, it was expressing some very serious mental issues that he had. But what's the point of this? What is our point in doing that? And believe me, I won't be asking you to do any of that when we are doing our when we have our actions. And the last one is devotion. That if there is not a spiritual reason, and I don't mean a religious reason, I am not advocating any religion. Um, if you got one, great, keep it. If you got two or three, even better. But if you got none, you still should be recognizing there's a transcendent reality that we'll be addressing in about a minute. And we should be doing that work. I've got something that just because it's sitting up on my desk right now, I want to read to you, and then we're going to switch gears into the Catalyst meditation. And this is from my book, Creating a World That Works for All. And this is by a Brazilian theologian by the name of Rubem Alves. And he says, let us learn from those who plant dates. A date tree takes 80 years. That's 80 years from the time it is planted to bear its first fruit. To plant a date tree is an act of faith, a sign of hope, and a symbol of one's loving commitment to the future. Let us plant dates, even though we who plant them will never eat them. We must live by the love of what we will never see. This is the secret discipline. It is the refusal to let our creative act be dissolved away in immediate sense experience, and is a stubborn commitment to the future of our grandchildren. Such disciplined love, I'm going to say that again. Such disciplined love is what has given prophets, revolutionaries, and saints the courage to die for the future they envision. They make their own bodies the seed of their highest hopes. So as we switch our gears into our catalyst meditation, we need to be making our bodies, our minds, our efforts, the seed of our hopes. And we need to do that with a level of discipline, and we need to show that to the world and encourage the world to do that. As usual, this is not, I've said this a lot, this is not a debate. That's going to come a little later. Um, we will I need to switch gears, and that means I'm going to go off screen for about 30 seconds or so, and then I will come back and do our catalyst meditation.